This episode of the Totally Rad Show is brought to you by Gamefly. Today we take a look back at the films of the late director Tony Scott.
The Totally Rad Show.
Totally Rad Show, Totally Rad, Totally Rad Show, Totally Rad, Totally Rad Show, Totally Rad, Totally Rad Show, Totally Rad Show.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Totally Rad Show. We've got a great week today. We're going to be doing a Tony Scott retrospective. He passed away last week.
Tomorrow, we've got the video game Sleeping Dogs, which came out recently.
And Wednesday, we are finalizing the results for the Summer Movie Wager,
Setting in stone, finally.
which just happened this past Wednesday.
Correctamundo. I don't know what this means.
Because you guys were all like, Tony Scott just died last week.
Oh,
Sleeping
yeah.
Dogs, which came out last week.
The movie Summer, which ended on Wednesday.
Right.
So on Thursday,
Thursday, we're doing Rad Rebus for no apparent reason.
And then Friday, we're talking about the Lucy Lawless documentary.
Oh.
About all of her life called Lawless.
Yes, I didn't realize she was a Prohibition Virginian.
Movie
but
with Shia
she
LaBeouf.
just-
Prohibition, Virginia.
Yep.
Yep.
Which is also the name of my new band, the Prohibition Virginians.
That's amazing.
That's actually an awesome name for a folksy
Anything. Yeah.
band.
Yeah. With a lot of like jugs. Anyway, it's time for a hoedown with this amazing background.
Never stop a hoedown. Oh,
Amazing
So,
background.
if you're a regular watcher of the show, you know
Yep.
that we do Twitter questions at the end of the show, and you know that just recently we did one where someone asked us what we would put on our Mount Rushmore.
Correct.
Seth Hatland stepped up to the plate and drew it.
Yes.
How awesome! This is the Totally Rad Show's
Yeah.
official
Mount Rushmore.
in living color.
We should like make a model of this and sell it as the Totally Rad Show Mount Rushmore.
Although I have to say, after getting all the feedback that people.
Oh yeah, we
from that-
shouldn't sell it.
No, but I like that idea. But getting all the feedback, I think we made a misstep. We were trying to come up with something from each of the a head from each of the things, and we went with Kit, obviously
Yep.
leaping, which looks awesome when he drew it.
Yeah.
But I don't know why neither of us thought of Homer Simpson, and a lot of the viewers thought of Homer Simpson would have been the perfect.
Yeah.
But Seth Hatland
Face.
made
Face.
Kit work.
Yeah.
Made Kit work.
Because Kit works. Speaking
Hey,
of works, if you want to get your works on the show, send it to fans@totallyradshow.com. And let's get to our works and start talking about stuff.
Sounds good.
What up?
Today we are going to take a look back at the films of Tony Scott. He just passed away last week, or 2 weeks ago maybe when you're watching this.
So tragic.
And
Sad.
and we haven't really had a filmmaker pass away while we've been doing the Totally Rad Show. At least not a filmmaker that has been so influential in making the movies that have defined the movies that we grew up with, and also very commercial fare.
Very much the
So-
spirit of this show.
Yeah, absolutely. And before, I think the easiest way to talk about his movies is in chunks, the late 80s, early 90s action movies, and then his more artsy, but still commercial fare. But before we do that, maybe I can just sort of give you sort of the brief history of to how he came into the movie making business.
And one quick thing too
And
is that I think is interesting to note. I think viewers of the show will know. I don't think there's a filmmaker that comes up more often, especially from you, but from all of us, in referencing other things. Like his style is so particular that I think that's why we all decided, hey, we should do an episode devoted to him, because I think he tends to come up all the time on this show.
Yeah.
You know, and is a very particular voice for our generation.
So yeah, I mean he's the younger brother of Ridley Scott, who Ridley Scott started in commercials, having made a short film called A Boy and His Bicycle that starred his little brother, Tony. You can actually see that on YouTube. We'll probably play a little clip of it right here. But you can see that flick on YouTube. And it's what got them both into commercials. They were both painters. Tony Scott was a painter for 8 years, and then following in his brother's footsteps, started directing TV commercials. He really defined early on, like he did a lot of the Marlboro Man stuff, a lot of military commercials. probably because of Top Gun.
Yeah.
Before Top Gun, he made a movie called The Hunger, a vampire movie starring David Bowie. Have you guys seen that one?
I have not.
It's a weird movie, and it didn't do very well.
Yeah.
It was very artsy, fartsy, which is interesting because he strayed from that and then returned to that. But The Hunger, I highly recommend you guys watching it. Or seeking out clips on YouTube. It looks like an 80s music video, and movies didn't look that way then.
Interesting.
And it's the cinematography and the editing are very modern, 80s modern, but modern.
Right.
And it's spectacular to look at. And one of the reasons why he was hired for Top Gun is really Jerry Bruckheimer. Jerry Bruckheimer was bored with the way movies looked and has started something with Tony Scott, that he and Don Simpson, that continued throughout the rest of Jerry Bruckheimer's career, that we all know,
which is funny because
one of the most influential producers.
And it's funny that
in
you
Hollywood.
say that, because I often look at a Jerry Bruckheimer movie and the director kind of falls away because the Jerry Bruckheimer movie has such a specific look, and that look is a very Tony Scott look.
Well, what it is Tony Scott influenced so many commercial directors, and what Jerry realized is I can hire these commercial directors who are probably cheaper for the first movie, but also they do so many experimental things in commercials because you're so brief. You have 30 seconds to tell a story. You can be
Right, and you
so
need
much
to
more
stand
poetic.
out from the crowd.
Yeah.
And that's The Hunger is super poetic. Top Gun, I remember being so shocked when I remember you were saying that you heard an interview how Jon Favreau was studying Top Gun for Iron Man because of the air
flight
combat
stuff.
choreography. But I always remember Top Gun as not being clear cut and linear. It was very poetic and very montagey and very it's not about all. We'll get into this later, mainly for Tony Scott's later works, but so much of his movies are about the feeling of scenes as opposed to actual choreography and stuff. But Top Gun is like this massive movie and is the start to me of the films that he'll make that are about friendships, male friendships, and all of his movies are very masculine, fueled by militaristic things, cops, villains, real
Almost social.
dude stuff.
Even up until the last movie that he directed,
Unstoppable. Yeah.
which is
So
like
but
huge.
Top Gun
Supposedly
guys,
they were in meetings at the time he died. They were in meetings for Top Gun 2.
That's right. That's right. Top Gun, big deal for your childhood,
Huge,
right?
Huge. You can't. It's the reason why I wanted to become a pilot. It's the reason why I want to ride motorcycles. Like, it's the reason why I wanted to be Tom Cruise. Not really why I got into beach volleyball, but it was in there.
Now, were there other Air Force movies? Iron Eagle, right? Came
Iron
from
Eagle.
Top Gun.
Definitely.
Did that?
Was Iron Eagle the one with the kid?
Jason Gedrick.
Whose dad goes away.
Louis
and,
Gossett Jr.
Yes, love that. And all of that. There was such a great 80s movement that really started with Top Gun about this whole concept of being a F-14
pilot.
Tomcat fighter pilot.
Yeah.
And the wings that would go in and out. I mean, it was just great. I had Tomcat model. Like, that was it for
But
me.
he really made it cool. And that was, I mean,
To be in the Air Force, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, before then, being in the Air Force, I mean, was cool, but it was never something you would think to aspire to.
it was just so pretty. It was so beautiful
Yeah.
looking.
Yeah.
He's coming from the painterly background. Okay, so after Top Gun, we get a slew. We get The Last Boy Scout.
Oh, which, by the way, is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Cool.
Really?
Shane
Love
Black,
The Last
scares
Boy
me.
Scout.
Didn't work.
Damon
for me.
Wayans,
Love it.
I actually just rewatched it. Damon Wayans really holds that movie back from staying up there, but that
Yeah.
Shane Black script is amazing.
And Bruce Willis, unbelievable Bruce Willis
So yeah,
performances.
Beverly Hills Cop 2 is what he actually followed up Top Gun with, but
Yeah.
which I actually love. I think some
too.
people's memories of Beverly Hills Cop are sequences from the second one rather than the first
That's
one.
funny, yeah.
But Beverly Hills Cop 2, Days of Thunder, but really Last Boy Scout, True Romance. We're gonna highlight that in a second.
Oh, I forgot that was Tony Scott.
There's another 80s.
We just talked about True Romance in Versus, right?
Probably. Okay, so let's highlight True Romance. True Romance also was the first time that Ridley will do many a time really usher in a young filmmaker. In this
Tony.
case, it was, I'm sorry, Tony. Quentin Tarantino's True Romance was written by Quentin Tarantino. Later on, Domino was written by Richard Kelly, who did Donnie and Darko. And then there's a third screenwriter, Shane Black with Last Boy Scout, who's now a filmmaker. So, True Romance, guys, monumental movie.
For sure.
Iconic, has that wonderful Christopher Walken, Dennis Hopper sequence.
Yep.
Once again, really about
It's a story of a comic book guy who works at a comic book store turning into a badass.
Yeah, and who goes to the movies at the Vista every night.
And way before that was a thing. I mean, we live in this world where that's sort of the thing. The nerd is the new cool. It's the thing.
You get things like Kick-Ass, where it's literally a guy puts on a suit and becomes Kick-Ass.
When True Romance came out, that wasn't the tenor of America. That wasn't you didn't see stories like that, and it was a violent in a different way. It was visual in a different way. It showed a vision of the underworld, and everybody talked in a cool, hip. I mean, it was that Tarantino thing.
And how do you guys feel about that? Now we have Quentin Tarantino as a filmmaker with his filmmaking of his words. How do you guys feel when you look back at True Romance? If you can envision it directed by Quentin Tarantino compared to it being directed by Tony Scott, how do they stack up in your mind?
Wow, that's a really interesting question.
Using your imagination.
Wow.
I mean,
I think they're totally different movies.
Very different movies.
You know what I mean?
So I think that proves really what Tony Scott brings to the table is he takes things that could be. He has this art house bent. This like if that was directed by Quentin Tarantino, it would have been probably the action would have been more less traditional action. It would have been.
It wouldn't have felt as slick.
It wouldn't have been as slick. It wouldn't have felt like an action movie with cool. It would have been more. What's the word I'm looking for? Where it's like vignette. It would have been like this scene, this tense scene, this
that sequence when Patricia Arquette gets the shit kicked out of her.
James Gandolfini,
James Gandolfini, right?
Yeah.
Is amazing.
Yeah.
But if you think of that sequence shot by Tarantino, it's completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different.
I would say less emotional.
Yeah.
And more probably like that could have been all in one shot and like off camera and you hear things or whatever.
There's a way that I think you could describe it, and I'm gonna say that Tony Scott comes from sort of a more honest and realistic way when he's directing. Whereas it's the feeling that I have, but I don't. It's not honest is the wrong word, because it's not like you don't believe that the things in Tarantino movies are happening. They're just so heightened that it doesn't feel like you're seeing a window into something that could be happening in the house next door to you. It's something that's happening in the Quentin Tarantino world in the house next door to you. You know what I mean? Whereas with Tony Scott, you kind of feel like, and things like with Man on Fire, where you're like, this could be happening. We're seeing it in nice colors and a very interesting way.
It's
But you know
stylized.
what
It's very stylized.
Definitely more than Quentin Tarantino, for sure.
Right.
And next big tempo I want to hit, Crimson Tide.
Now this, I was looking over his and this is my favorite Tony Scott movie, bar none. I love True Romance. I mean, there's a lot of.
This is the movie on his list that is timeless. Top Gun's not really timeless.
Right.
And Crimson Tide is a great movie. It's not just a great action movie. It's not just a great Tony Scott movie. This is like.
If there's a chance that you have not seen Crimson Tide, you have to watch it immediately.
Yeah.
It is wonderfully, tensely staged. There is incredible characterization. There is you rooting for different people at different times. It is awesome, and the performances are great.
I'm gonna have to go
it's
back
Denzel
and see that.
at
I
the
haven't seen that
top
in a
of
long
Denzel.
time.
It's Gene Hackman at the top of Gene Hackman. It is.
Gene Hackman wears Tony Scott's hat in the movie.
Yeah.
He's smoking cigars. If you want an insight into perhaps any of Tony Scott's characteristics,
Some autobiographical moments.
maybe the Rosetta Stone is Gene Hackman's performance in this movie. I don't know. I'm just positing that. Okay. There's some other movies, but I want to get to the big tipping point in his career with Man on Fire and Domino, and he'd done a couple BMW films, and I think Pelham was this way as well. We get into a period in his career where he's making a Deja Vu as well, incredibly poetically shot, very commercial scripts.
Yeah, I like Deja Vu.
Enemy of the State came before these. Which
Sort
that
of-
was sort
sort
of
of
his
the
last regular action movie.
Yeah.
So, Man on Fire, we're talking about flash frames, we're talking about hand-cranked cameras, starting the trend of subtitles that are not just at the bottom of the screen to let you. There's subtitles that are like coming on in different parts of the frame, and they're very. It's putting you into the feeling of what's happening in the plot, where the character is going through, as opposed to just choreographed scenes.
Yeah.
I love that style. A lot of people are very off-put by it. It's hard to watch. And really, it comes from that commercial, have liberty to be more poetic and experimenting with physical techniques. I mean, he's very much a a craftsman.
Right. If you see,
he's tying physical technology with creativity, artistry.
And if you played the last Max Payne game, you see how much that style has influenced other people. Numerous filmmakers, I'm sure you could rattle off a list of people.
Yeah.
Peter Berg and a lot of people. I'm sure that's no. Okay, maybe not.
Well, no,
but even in other medium, I mean that last Max Payne game is as if Tony Scott made a video game.
Yeah, and it's the plot of Man on Fire also.
That's true too.
But it takes on the identity of Man on Fire. Absolutely, you're right. It's interesting to me that and even through Unstoppable, and it's a shame because Unstoppable seemed to he then took what he got out of his system in that, or just put out there with that artistic stuff and started to tame down a little bit and make things more traditional. But I loved Unstoppable. I would have loved to have seen what he would be doing next in terms of just purely his filmmaking.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to me is how many of his movies are about cops and criminals.
Yeah.
Are two-handers. Two-handers is what we call in Hollywood when it's two stars. It's
equal.
A buddy. Yeah, two stars equal. So whether it's Patricia Arquette and Christian Slater in True Romance, or it's Denzel and Gene Hackman, or Denzel and Chris Pine, or whatever, it's always
Will Smith, Gene Hackman.
Yeah. But it's always the two-hander.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to me, this guy who's got an older brother, and and they're in the same biz.
I didn't put that together.
And not only that, but you guys have heard me say multiple times about how his movies have had very similar endings. The ending of Domino, Enemy of the State, and True Romance, and possibly even Pelham, is our protagonist being chased after by good guys and bad guys, cops and robbers, essentially, in all these movies. Gets to the end and then bows out of the action scene and lets the two forces fight together. They literally end that exact same way. And so many movies I watched Last Boy Scout, they in that last 80s era are like trench coat dudes with sunglasses, smoking cigarettes, like all those bad. He's made so many movies. What I'm saying is they're mining the same territory. It's so interesting. And a lot of filmmakers do that. I mean, Scorsese's made a lot of gangster movies and all that.
Right.
But what was it about that kind of thing that
appealed to him so
I think
much?
Really they were vehicles for him to be artistic as well as commercial at the same time. I really kind of feel like that might be at the crux of it.
Yeah.
But
I just can't believe we're not going to see any more Tony Scott movies.
it's crazy because it's so influential. The thing I always the thing I always used to say is Ridley Scott is timeless and Tony Scott is of his time because he would make these movies that are so stylistic.
Yeah.
They're not. Ridley Scott's a little bit more subtle. Tony Scott is so stylistic that
daring.
That from then on we get so many movies that copycat that style that then it becomes out of it's overdone or
it becomes associated with that. It's in vogue so prominently that it becomes a fashion of the time.
Yes, a fashion of the time.
And,
so then it becomes really dated, really timeless because that's so of that time.
Yeah.
But he does that throughout different
and he keeps
decades and it keeps
reinventing it.
changing.
Yeah.
So it's a shame that we won't get that influence anymore and see what's next. But if you haven't seen any of the movies on his filmography, definitely go back and see it. And I think
Watch
Jeff's
pretty
right.
much all of them.
Crimson Tide is a
True
pinnacle
Romance.
there.
If you haven't seen True Romance, I mean, we can.
all of them.
They're so.
I
good.
love, like I said, Last Boy Scout, one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, be sure to stick around. We're going to be answering one of your Twitter questions right after this. But first, we want to thank our sponsors, Jeff.
GameFly, the place that's going to save you
My
cash.
dogs are barking.
Your
with all
dogs
that
are
cash I'm
barking
gonna
about that.
Save.
GameFly is the largest online video game rental service on the planet. Offers you a choice of over 8,000 new and classic titles from across all possible consoles and handhelds. And starting at $15.95, it makes it affordable to play everything. All you do is have that one low monthly fee, and then you can rent 1 to 4 games at a time, keep them as long as you want. You never have to pay for shipping, you never have to pay late fees, there's no due dates to oppress you like the man does. Once you're done playing the game, you just send it back to GameFly, they'll send you the next one on your list, and you keep going. You can cram as many games as you can possibly fit.
But Jeff, I'm a PC gamer. What about me?
Well, guess what? GameFly's got your back there too.
What?
You can play hundreds of PC games for free with the unlimited PC Play. That's brand new. That's super awesome. I know that you don't believe anything I say ever.
You're lying.
That's right. You always say that in that voice. That is why the fine folks at GameFly have hooked up with us to give you guys a 15-day free trial if you go to gamefly.com/TTRS. The second T, of course, stands for...
You're lying.
testicles. Gamefly.com/TTRS. Get a 15-day trial and feel
The testicle.
The magic.
All right.
Join us tomorrow for our review of the game Sleeping Dogs.
Today's Twitter question, sent in with the hashtag TRSQ, was sent in by Mark Donica at SoapboxMark. What classic animal/alien companion, i.e. Snarf, Snowy, Boo Boo, would you want with you for the rest of your life? Rest of your life, long time.
Snarf has magic powers, right?
Snarf does sort of, but not
I mean, that's
really.
helpful.
Snarf.
That is annoying. Cringer wouldn't be bad.
I was thinking about Cringer. Cringer wouldn't be bad.
What is it Momo? In Avatar?
Momo, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
The
he's
little-
cool.
Momo would be cool. I would definitely love
He's the most
Momo.
adorable, I think.
Yeah.
You can't get more adorable than that.
Although, you know what I'd like too is, what about the robot that Penny has, the sort of like R2 robot that Penny has in
Inspector Gadget?
Inspector Gadget that like turns into
Robot?
a...
She's a dog.
She's a dog.
No, Mask. In Mask. It's the kid, the son of the lead guy. His son has a robot that turns into a scooter,
Yeah.
right? And like hangs out with him. Or C-3PO.
Technically, Sam
R2D2.
It would be annoying
Sam
too.
Witwicky's companion would be, and that is an alien, would be Bumblebee. But
Well,
I
that's
think
not-
I think
that's-
it's
yeah, I
stretching
think it's
it.
small.
That's a friend.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not a familiar.
Nice to have a car. That car would be nice to have. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I think Battlecat Cringer is maybe a
Cringer's
win.
pretty cool. Cause you can ride around on him. I
go
mean,
Momo.
Appa.
I don't think that counts because then.
Yeah, Momo is the
Yeah,
companion. Appa is the
his
workhorse.
ride. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
Right.
I think you might have nailed it with Momo.
Momo's pretty darn good.
This would be fun just to
Does
have.
does ET count?
No.
You wouldn't wanna hang out with
He's a
E.T.?
friend. He's a friend.
He heals you. He heals
healing
you.
power.
I would say the monkey from Return
Father
of the Jedi,
replacement.
but that monkey kind of tried to, or not Return of the Jedi, from
Raiders.
Raiders.
The
but that-
Nazi monkey.
First off, it wasn't a Nazi monkey. It
was a Nazi
it
monkey.
was
Yeah,
an assassin monkey. It
monkey. It was
didn't
a
work for a
Nazi
Nazi. It
monkey.
worked
You
for
didn't
a
see
guy
his
who
little,
worked
he
for
had
the
little,
Nazis.
little hairs right here.
Well, I'll still take Hitler monkey. He seemed nice.